Hello! Happy Monday. I hope that my audio sounds good. Okay, thanks, Druid. I've been having trouble with this mic, and it seems like here on Twitch it's totally fine. But if I switch over to Zoom, Jill can't hear me. My meetings, when I'm in meetings, they can't hear me. It's really weird. I don't know if it's a Zoom thing. It's a bit low. Okay. So this is the settings that I had on Saturday, which uses both OBS, which is my software, and Twitch. Sorry, I'm here. I turned my AC off thinking that maybe it was the noise cancellation, but now I'm hearing this like crazy humming noise that must be coming from outside. I hope it's coming from outside. Well, I guess I'm going to find out. We'll have to wait it out and see. If I got to run, you guys. So I turned the AC off. Okay. It's been a crazy day. So I hope you guys had a good weekend. I know some of you were there for, let's see. Oh no, I'm so sorry, Druid. Oh no, everything blasted you because you had it at 100. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is, my mic is dying. I don't know. Okay, whatever that noise was, it just stopped. And the electricity did a little bloop. Good grief. I don't know what it is. Been trying not to run all of our AC all at once. Because it's hard on these units. It costs a lot of money to run them, so we only run the AC in, certain parts of the house, because we don't have central air. It's all window units. So anyway. Oh no, Druid! Oh no. A contractor to answer the phone and you're stressed out. I'm so sorry your house flooded. Is it like ground floor kind of flooding, or is there a basement? I know you're in a different house now and I don't quite know that. Okay, basement. Okay. Well, that's bad, I realize, but at least it's not like your living space, right? Ooh, that's the worst. Water, much as we need it, when you get a storm or some kind of infrastructure problem, and I feel you, girl. My basement is a crawl space, really. I mean, you can stand up in it, the main part of it. The rest of it is truly a crawl space. But yeah, if we don't have our gutters routed properly, we have those they look kind of like accordion pipe. But we have to route that away from our house because otherwise our neighbors and our gutters just like feed right into my crawl space and just fills the basement up. It's terrible. Anyway, I got my fingers crossed for you. And I hope there's a wet vac. And if there's not one, I hope there's one in your near future. So, oh no, the plumbing. Is it the plumbing or the water table? Oh goodness. Oh dear. Oh girl. We are all sending you good vibes. I think you need all of the contractor plumber vibes. I'm sending them all to you. I need a plumber too, but my problem is just the washers are worn out, in my bathtub. I can actually probably fix them myself. I have done in the past, but yeah. My problems are very minor. All right. So, this weekend went by like that. Obviously, Saturday, Jill and I had stitch and glitch. Like I said, that's where some of these audio issues are not resolving themselves. So I may be out there shaking my little can on the corner. Will stream for cash so I can buy a new mic. This is my second one of this brand, and it's my first one lasted a very long time. This one, I don't remember when I bought it. It was sometime over the pandemic. And I kind of bought it in a hurry because the last one died. So maybe I need to go with a new brand. This is a brand that is, it was always promoted to instructional designers, which was what, my professional job is, or was. And we would always use this specific brand of mic because it was more affordable than like the professional ones. Anyway, so this weekend, I don't know, it almost felt like we were on the verge of the 4th of July, I guess, the weekend before the 4th of July. Obviously, here in the United States, that's a big deal, and it's especially a big deal this year because July 4th, this coming Saturday, is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which is considered America's birthday. So, I'm certain all of our non-US friends have just been watching and seeing. But yeah, in terms of like 250 years, I kind of want to give us a thumbs up for that, what's the next 250 years look like? I don't know. We'll have to see. But my direct focus this weekend was just running some errands and honestly kind of goofing off. I've had a lot of family stuff lately, and I have projects that I'm like, oh, I need to be working on this. I have just some random stuff that's kind of important, but I'm like, I just had to goof off this weekend. And so I did some sewing. My miniatures, I totally totally personal hobby kind of stuff. I made this little tiny quilt, and I drew this eagle, and then one of my little mini babies. He goes with the quilt, or the quilt goes with him. I made him his little hat, his little sun hat out of felt, um, and his little diaper, like a swim diaper. I found this material, and I told you guys about it. It's kind of pricey, but they one of the brands of these little toys that I've collected, they use this fabric, and I'm like, what is this magical stuff? So I researched it, and I found out it's actually kind of like, I don't know if it's coming from like I guess it's kind of coming from the medical community, but it's like a Velcro, and I'm using finger quotes there because it's not scratchy. It's very soft. One side of it kind of looks like I don't know, almost like a microscopic towel. And then the other side of it almost looks like the surface of one of those, what are those, Mr. Clean magic erasers? It's like a foamy. And so I think that must be what the technology is. It's some kind of, like foam fabric-y. I mean, it's a micro fabric. But anyway, so if you would consider like the towel-ish looking part, if you consider that like the loops or the hooks, maybe the loops. And then this side, even though it's very smooth, it's actually the hooks. And I kid you not, they stick together like Velcro. And so I don't want to say it's marketed because it's not marketed. I can only find one seller in the US, and she is in upstate New York. She is slow as can be to ship. I've bought this stuff from her twice because I've been making little things with it. But the medical, and I say medical, but like it's like a comfort thing. If I know sometimes people on the spectrum have issues with their clothes being scratchy, closures and things on clothes. Well, this is very soft, and elderly people, that their skin is very thin, and any kind of like, I mean, a piece of like the hook part of Velcro or even the loopy part of Velcro, the corners of it are very scratchy. And I mean, I've been scratched by Velcro, and I think like I'm not elderly most days. But I think about elderly people, and just how like just a scratch from some Velcro could, like really hurt their skin. So this is just such an interesting thing, and I mean, I think Velcro in itself is an interesting technology, but this stuff is very cool. Now, is it going to like have incredible holding power? No. Like you cannot replace the zipper on your tightest jeans with this because it will pull apart like with a lot of force, but it's just so interesting to me that it clings and it closes. And so this lady markets this stuff, for clothing and for costuming, and miniatures like dolls, doll clothing, that kind of thing, because it is smaller and softer than like big honking pieces of Velcro. Also, she's a horse person, and I have no idea what she's doing horse related with this, but it's her horses that led her first to this material. So anyway, it's her company is Soto and Stitch, so SOTO and Stitch. And she sells this on Etsy, and she has a website. I think that's sotoandstitch.com. Let's see. Yeah, sotoandstitch.com. So anyway, and the stuff is like 40 some dollars a yard, but I think it's probably big and wide. And I've just been buying scraps from her that are cheaper. So anyway, I just thought I'd like just share this interesting technology that I've made some little doodads out of. I think I hit my keyboard. What else did I do this weekend? Just sort of like going through my fabric. I found this, and this is a fabric designer, and she no longer designs fabric. She became a mom and stepped away from fabric design. And I want to say last I looked on her Instagram, she was doing like ceramics maybe. I see a lot of surface designers going from like fabricy things to ceramics. It's interesting. But anyway, her name is Phoebe Wall, and it's Wahl. And at some point, I had bought a panel of her. They're like quilt labels and like just cute little like panel type things. You could use like fussy cut it for something. One of the labels is this. And look how perfectly sized it is for a tiny quilt. So it's kind of already like a cheater's cloth for a tiny quilt. And I'm trying to figure out what to put in the middle. I thought I probably will do something embroidery related, make it like it's like a baby quilt or something. Um, but then the fabric I have for the backing, look at that, little tiny stars, little tiny things. Yeah. Um, Not to spend too much time on tiny things, but uh, I've noticed like, and I probably talked about this a couple weeks ago, but like the trinket trend is a really big deal right now. And the algorithm, of course, is serving me lots of miniatures, and I open Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and I get like pretty much all, it's either quilts or tiny things, which is all good. It's my favorite. But I think people are kind of coping with just difficult. Sorry. People are just coping with difficult feelings by doing stuff with miniatures. And it's interesting, or these little trinkets. Like, I don't know that everybody who loves little things is necessarily doing like doll houses or dioramas or, those kind of things. But, there's these trinket trades I've seen where it's almost like one of those little free libraries. They put a thing. And in this case, they're like these electrician's boxes. Kind of like, you open the panel, right? that like your the fuses or the whatever that you could reset your electricity, or your fuse box, I guess is what it's called. Anyway, the newer ones that are a little bit more like, not so much fuses but like switches and stuff, you can buy those, like at Home Depot in the electrician section, I guess. And they mount them on like a post, kind of like a signpost, I think. And I've seen like bookstores and stuff that have them. And it's one of those. It's like the little free library. You leave something and take something, and I just love that. I think that's such a sweet thing. It's so wholesome, and it just gives people like a little shot of joy. And it occurred to me that so many people are doing these miniature things, and especially creating these like little miniature worlds. Like I've noticed on Facebook, I belong to a couple groups about the little babies, and like, the little babies, like I don't name them. I just think they're cute. I make clothes for them and have them doing funny things like drinking beer. Somebody gave me a little glass bong, and I have one of the babies like token up. I think it's funny. Of course, these people are very serious about their babies. But they create these whole worlds, and they name the babies, and they dress the babies and all the things, and I'm like, I think this is about having something that you can control when the world seems out of control. It makes a lot of sense to me. So I say, three cheers for these people for finding something so, wholesome and kind of sweet to, funnel their energy into, and just kind of forget about things for a while. So, all right, well, enough of that. So today, I promised last week that, wait, before I forget. Look at this, you guys. This is the Harriet Powers, it's the American Commemorative Panel for 2026 Harriet Powers stamps. I was going to buy like just a sheet of them just to have, in my collection. Not that I was planning to mail anything with them. Now, if somebody wanted to send me a letter and use these stamps, like, yes, I would love that. But I don't want to pay any bills with Harriet Powers stamps because, um, but isn't this cool? So instead of getting a sheet to actually, just a plain old sheet, they I guess I knew that they issued these kind of things. I just have never owned one before. So anyway, it's just a little blurb about her. The very famous picture of her, and then the four different stamps that are in the sheet of stamps. So I think it was like $14. So very pleased to have this. My collection of things, quilty things. You'd probably name them. Name them fantastical names that not be might be accepted in the real world, right? Like that's what you want to do. I, gosh, I think I look around and I have like kind of a pile of like things here with all my quilty stuff, and then I have toys. And I have always been a toy collector all my life. Even when I was very small, I wanted to get my hands on old vintage toys. I recognized that like that was a thing. Um, probably elementary school. Like I saw people that collected things or they held on to their toys from their youth, and I was like, there's something going on here. I don't think I knew how to like put words to it. But I'd always just fascinated by like tin toys and old baby dolls and things like that. And I mean, I just go back to it's a wholesome hobby. Although my son pointed something out to me recently, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he is so right. So these little babies and all the little miniature doodads that I've shown you guys over the years, because I've collected this stuff for a long time and have done this stream for a long time. They come in these blind capsules, right? If I have one right here, these blind capsules, you don't know what's in there. This one happens to be a Hello Kitty and Friends one that I picked up recently, and it's a duplicate. So, this one happens to be a Little Twin Stars cakes. But so without some kind of cheat sheet, which I do have access to, which is why I know what's in here. You don't know what's in here. You know what you're getting. And my son says, this is habituating children. And I'm like, wait a minute, this stuff isn't for children. I mean, your average child is going to think this Hello Kitty stuff is cute and want it because that's what average children like. They see cute little things and they want them. I was an average child many years ago, and I saw these cute little Hello Kitty things at a store that sold Sanrio, and I wanted them. And my mom, every now and then, would find the money to buy like one little thing. So I had like a handful of little things. Well, this stuff is like duplicates of those things, and so I'm like all about wanting it. So these aren't really marketed to children, even though they sell them in the toy section. But my son is saying that they're habituating children to gambling because it's essentially what it is. It's gambling, and you never know what you're going to get, so you keep buying them. And it's like that same like hit of dopamine you get when you put money in a slot machine, and now you just hit a button. You don't pull an arm, you just hit a button, and it's just, and you're like, oh, I'm up $10. I got the thing I wanted, right? And I realize that's a very negative way of looking at it, but it kind of is true. I mean, they're these toy and collectibles companies, I mean, Labubu, that is not one that I have even, gotten anywhere near, but that was kind of the Labubu craze, was being able to get in on those Labubu drops and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, McDonald's Happy Meal toys, yeah, kind of. You do kind of have an idea of, well, you have an idea of what is available of the thing. So it's kind of the same as these mystery balls, for sure. But yeah, it's definitely, and the collector's market is already fraught with madness and insanity. To throw in the fact that there's all these things that, are essentially gambling, it's very interesting. So anyway, step off my horse there. All right. I promised on Thursday that I was going to look into, see if I could find some of these quilts so we can look at them in color. Well, I found some, and I found lots of others. I started trying to look, and the thing is with Averil Colby and honestly with what's at the V&A, a lot of the stuff they don't have names, the makers' names for They might have a date range. So in some cases, it's hard to describe something and get exactly what you're looking for. So I reverse engineered my search. And what I did is I went to the V&A Collections. And did you know they have an app? The V&A Collections has an app. You could just have it right on your phone. You don't even need to go to the website. And if you're in Great Britain, you can shop directly from the app. That's crazy. As far as I know, they're only shipping to it through Great Britain now. So, window shop with caution. But so literally using the V&A Collections app, I found I narrowed my search to quilts or quilted objects between 1600 and 1899. So just a 300-year period. It got me, I think it got me like about 700 objects, 650 objects. And literally a good, probably a third of the things were objects, not quilts. There was a lot of like quilted prayer mats, quilted clothing, quilted petticoats, like out the wazoo. Almost all of it that I pulled up, with the exception of a few things, are at the new V&A Storehouse, which is that visual storage place that you can go to. I unfortunately didn't get to go when I visited last year, but it's on my wish list for my next visit. You can literally go there and just visit and walk around, and like everything is like glass walls and stuff, and you could see things. But the things that are part of that storehouse, you can schedule an appointment and see up to 5 things. So I think that is amazing. And I wish the Smithsonian was doing something like that, where you could just pick. And, here in the US, you can make an appointment with just about any museum to see a thing. But it is around their schedule. And for instance, I think I formed a pretty decent relationship with the librarian archivist at the Baltimore Museum of Art. But she's like a staff of one, and she has some interns and some like front desk people that she supervises. But everything is based on her schedule. So she has to be in the office. She has to be able to like be nearby. She can't like just invite me in and then leave and go to meetings and stuff. She has to be in her office while I'm researching when I'm in there. So sometimes I have to wait if she's, out of town or she's got a lot of meetings. She's like, I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't. Um, and to see anything at the Baltimore Museum of Art, they have these curators days. But from what I understand, the textiles curator is not always on that Wednesday rotation. And when they are, you may have a wait. You may have to wait, put your request in and wait. So for the most part, it is not, instantaneous and easy to get access to things at museums that are not, readily displayed, etc. So it's exciting that the V&A has this new facility where you can do that. And I don't know what the lead time is. I suspect that, it's also not the kind of thing where you could just pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to see these 5 things tomorrow. I think it's also probably you're going to be like in a queue waiting. But, the fact that you could pick 5 things and have a solid appointment, and, my assumption is they have viewing rooms and stuff. So anyway, long story. Let's look at some quilts. So I can't. So I told you I kind of reverse engineered it. I looked through all of these like 650 objects. Some of them are definitely the quilts that are in the book, and some of them are quilts that are very similar to the quilts in the book. So I couldn't exactly find everything, but I found a lot of stuff that I thought was interesting, that I thought you guys might want to see. And then we'll hopefully try to finish, I guess, depending on how long it takes me, try to finish the chapter we were on. So this is where we left off on Thursday. So we looked at this. This is not one of the quilts in the book, but this is the Duke of Wellington medallion piece, chintz medallion that is in a quilt in the book. So that's why I had pulled this one up. And then this one I just loved so much, and it is in the book. It's just so fascinating. And the reason why she has this one in the book, because she's really not looking at a whole lot of applique stuff. It's mostly patchwork, although really in these English quilts of this time period, where they have applique, it's often mixed with patchwork. So I think it's difficult to say, a quilt here is 100% applique, 100% patchwork. They're not. They're often a mix. But I think the reason why she had this one in the book is because of the chintz medallion. And there is what I think is some piecing here, but I also think this might be applique as well. I think this is a dogtooth border and it's facing out um, here. And I think that this is stitched into the seam between the border and the quilt. And then it's that dogtooth applique situation. That's what I think. Not entirely positive, but it's my guess. So we'll move along since we looked at these the other day. This. Now this one's interesting. I have not read the details on it. I just looked at it. For some reason they have this one labeled as having inappropriate language in the description, I think. So I don't know what that is. We're going to find out. But this one seems to have what I can best guess are some sort of storytelling here. And of course, I think we need to read what this quilt is about. But it's biblical. We've definitely got some biblical stuff going on here. I mean, this is like obviously a Garden of Eden thing. Definitely have some angels. I mean, this looks like a lamb, possibly Christ. I don't know. I don't know my Bible stories very well, except for the really obvious ones. Look at all these fish down here. I mean, this is just an amazing quilt. And all of these little hearts in between. And then you just have all these people here in the bottom. I do suspect that, it's showing what could be Africans or possibly enslaved people. And I'm wondering if maybe that's kind of some of the language there and that description is not appropriate. So yeah, but this is just, is that a flamingo? I think that's a flamingo. But yeah, this is just a interesting thing. And just all of these people and these scenes all over it. So these are all just close-ups of it. Yeah, I mean, this looks like Punch and Judy, kind of. Like these people with these big noses. I don't know what that is. These people look like they're harvesting something. Flax, maybe? Soldiers? Okay. I cannot see what this says, but this is a black person. And I don't know what this fabric is. I guess it's wool, perhaps. Seems to be. And with embroidery stitches. Yeah, I think this says master. And, yeah. So I think that they're showing some enslaved people on this quilt. And that's I don't know what this is. Somebody saying amen? So preacher, perhaps? Or agreeing to something? I don't know. Oh, in the back of it. Look at that. Okay, so let's see if we can find out what this quilt is about. Yeah, see, this object or the text that described it is deemed offensive and discriminatory. We are committed to improving our records and work is ongoing. So I don't know if it's the subject matter or what. So this was made in 1820. Wiltshire. The artist and maker we do know is a woman named Anne West, which is interesting to me because West is my mother's maiden name. Now, granted, West is kind of an ordinary name. It's not like, super, like, there's lots of people with the last name West. But I'm always interested in that because it is a British origin. Okay, so this says Anne West, the creator of this needlework masterpiece, may have owned a millinery and dressmaking shop in Chippenham, Wiltshire. To make the coverlet, she used brightly colored woolen material from coats and uniforms, a type of cloth made in the West Country. Okay, so I think a lot of times these really, really fine textiles, women had access to this stuff because of their job or because of a family member's job. The design shows Adam naming the animals in the Garden of Eden together with 64 brightly colored woolen panels showing other vivid scenes from Bible stories and lively depictions of everyday characters and occupations. Captions are embroidered over the appliqued pictures, adding humorous and personal touches. Each panel acts as a window into early 19th century life, and they include a depiction of a double wedding. Oh, maybe that's the Amen one. And some with titles given by the embroiderer. So that, yeah. So we can see her poor sailor and the servant and master. Very interesting quilt. Okay, this one was not in the book, by the way. I looked to see if we missed it or I flipped through, but okay, this I just wanted to look at. I came across it as I was going through, and when we read her other book, Quilting, which was published, I think it was in like 1970, 71, something like that. She spent so much time on armor and that kind of thing. I thought, well, let's look at some of the things that made our dear Averil Colby lose her mind over. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Looking at this thing, I get it. So it starts off kind of ordinary. This is a doublet and breeches. So some basic quilting. Look at all these buttons. That is crazy. And then all of these big bows. And then the doublet has these panels that come. There's slits here, and should be the opening. There should be a slit here. So they're kind of like these flappy petals that go around sort of the skirt of the doublet. And just look at this embroidery, or not embroidery, quilting. What do I say embroidery? Look at all this quilting in there. And then there's quilting also on the cuffs of the sleeves. So it goes from this very basic chevron sort of pattern to this ornate quilting. And then the breeches. Oh my gosh, look at that. The breeches remind me a lot of the quilted petticoats that are both here and in the UK. So this is the back of it. These still kind of look like this looks like it could be one big panel. But they're still sort of flippy flappy things. Yeah, this looks like it's stitched together in the center. But look at that, how they did this sort of mirror images of these, I don't know, swirly curly things. Here's a close-up of, oh my goodness, it's some kind of like silk thread, maybe, like some sort of loopy. So I'm wondering if this is like a needle, an embroidery technique, or if this is some type of like loopy thread. I don't know. It's like boucle. That's what it reminds me of. Here's those ribbons. Oh, look, there's some sort of little ornament there in the middle. Like buttons, those buttons that they... Oh my goodness. And there's some more trim. Wow. Ah, look at this. These buttons. Oh my goodness. And lots more of this loopy trim. I guess it's some sort of trim, and maybe that over the years it's gotten where it just sort of looks loopy and such. It's a drawing of it. Or maybe that's oh no, you know what? That's not a drawing of it. That's a black and white photo of it. So all of these must be the older photos of it. Okay, those aren't great photos, so let's read about it quickly. So 1635 to 1640. A splendid quilted doublet of the late 1630s has clearly been fashioned from another textile, probably a bed cover. Interesting. Okay, so it's a quilt coat. Seams that do not follow the construction of the doublet and the varying directions of the quilted pattern are clues to this reuse. So we know this happens. Nevertheless, great care was taken to incorporate the original design into the doublet in a symmetrical fashion and to show the quilting to best effect. A braid of knotted and tufted silk was added to the finished doublet, and 12 large bows of silk ribbon adorned the waist. The full knee-length breeches were typical of men's dress of the 1630s. The doublet has a waistline slightly above the natural level, open front seams on the sleeves, and bears large waist tabs, also characteristic of the period. So waist tabs are those floppy things. They're called tabs. Very interesting. I could never wear something like that because it would have a mustard stain on it immediately. This is another one that I was just like, what? Look at this. Lots and lots of these little appliqued and embroidered scenes. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this one, but this one, they're even more skillful than that other one, the Anne West one. And these also appear to be biblical things. And war heroes, perhaps. Let's see. The Royal Standard. And let's see. Maybe flip through these. We can see Raglan. Okay. Is it Lord Raglan? The Duke of Raglan? I don't know. Well, this looks like Paul Fry or Saul Fry. I don't know if that's a P or I think that's a P, Paul Fry. And then apparently below him is Christ. So, oh, Africa. Okay, so this is a continent it's representing, or a Wat Tyler? No, that must be what's below. Napier? No idea. Samaria? I can't see. Justice. Okay, Justice. Anti-Corn Law League. Anti-Corn Law League. This is quite a mashup. I can't wait to read them. America! Okay. What is this one? Jenny Lind. Elisha. Some of these, it looks like they're labeled above and some are labeled below, I guess. Kind of confusing. And then it looks like the rest are black and white photos. So, all right, let's find out about this thing. So it's an unknown artist. 1856 to 1869. That's an odd range there. This cover or hanging consists of 61 panels with the royal coat of arms in the center and figures symbolizing the 4 continents in each corner. Okay, so that must have been the 4 continents. 4 continents. The subjects of the other panels include scenes from the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, images of the 4 evangelists, Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert, celebrated French and British military and naval heroes, well-known performers and actors, and episodes and characters from popular plays. The subject of each panel is identified with an embroidered title. It is skillfully made of appliqued wool and silk with some intarsia work. The figures are carefully depicted, their facial and bodily features, drapery, details of their clothes, and accessories embroidered in polychrome silk, in chain, satin, back, and other flat stitches. In the case of the bears in the story of Elijah, the nap of the wool fabric has been raised to suggest their shaggy coats. The identity of the maker is not known, but similar quilts of known authorship were made by men, several of whom are tailors. So this could be one made by a man. And it does have that vibe about it. There's like, I know there's a soldier's quilt that's done with this intarsia, where it's like you're cutting a hole in a piece of fabric, and it's typically like a wool, like a felted wool, kind of thick, and you cut that hole out, and then you put another piece right in there. So it's almost like a puzzle piece that goes down in it. So that's what intarsia is. It's like kind of puzzle pieces. So I think that's what this description is referencing, is those other quilts that are coverlets. I mean, I don't even know what to call them. They're not necessarily quilts. Um, Very cool. All right. This. Now, this is not in the book either. I'm sorry. I found a bunch of cool stuff to look at that's not in the book. But this was so very interesting. Yet another one with all of these little scenes. And look at all of this in here. Yowza. I don't even know what to say about this. And so these, like, they're like almost like eyes, right? So it's like this football shape with a circle in the middle, so like almost like an eye. And then you got these little scenes, and I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to inform you, there must be another campaign. So, faces are hard, y'all. So no making fun of these. Look at this horrible baby. um, I'm laughing with them, not at them. These are amazing. And these fabrics too. These fabrics are wild. I mean, some of these are obviously chintzes, but then they're paired with these other, like, really interesting. Like, I've never seen anything like this. So this is either, from the continent, from Europe, or I mean, maybe some of the English mills. These are. Oh, he looks like he's got a head wound. They're on a ship. Oh, this must be father home from his military service, perhaps. They're happy to see him. So this is the thing in the middle. And that looks like it could be one of the castles, one of the castle complexes. With the flag, artillery. I just love these fabrics too. I mean, there's such a wide variety. And then these pieced circle things. I mean, my gosh, there's so many of them. Oh, that. Very interesting. I don't know. Hmm. I guess this is the back of it. Wow. That's like a whole piece of chintz, I guess. Now, here's a shame. This is a shame that they don't have these pictures taken in color. Let's see. Yeah, this is all the black and white. I guess they're going, oh, well, we already had those in black and white. Well, they're not as good in black and white, V&A. All right, let's find out about it. So it's a bed cover, maker unknown, circa 1805. So this is a rare example of a figurative coverlet that has been entirely pieced over paper. Okay, so these are all paper pieced. An incredibly labor-intensive endeavor which testifies to both the design and needlework skills of the maker. It's stuff like this that just blows my mind, that no name was kept. Like this, something this incredible, and wherever it was found, and then it ends up being like, just, I mean, it's museum worthy, but we don't know who it is who made that. Drawing on popular printed images, this patchwork coverlet was worked during a period of intense naval euphoria. The central scene shows King George III reviewing the volunteer troops and is based on a painting by John Singleton Copley, 1738 to 1815. His Majesty reviewing the volunteer corps. That was painted in 1799. On June 4th, 1799, King George III carried out a review of 15,000 volunteer troops at Hyde Park, London. Celebrating the king's 61st birthday, the occasion was also a carefully calculated show of military strength at a time of possible French invasion. In several scenes, a small red haired figure appears alongside soldiers and sailors. Absent from the original prints, this may be a self portrait of the maker. Oh my goodness, that's interesting. Like they were Forrest Gumping themselves. I definitely will do that. One day, if I ever make a quilt that is scenic of historical scenes, I'm going to totally Forrest Gump it and like slip myself in there. Unless it was like bad things. I don't want to be at the bad things, but certainly something good. I'll just stick myself in there. Okay. This should look familiar. I hold it up every week. So this is the quilt on the cover of the book. I only have one picture of it. And it, I think it's probably much more true to color in these pictures. The book seems to like really kind of punch up the reds and the pinky colors. I think this is probably a little bit more accurate representation of the colors. But you have, so this is a King George, one of the King Georges. It's G, and then I think that says 50, and then R. So George Rex would be what that would stand for. So let's find out the details, because I know she talked about it, but so this is circa 1810. And this is interesting because they get into all this stuff about what quilting is. So we have to go down to the object details to really get the real deal. So this is a quilted patchwork bed cover of printed cottons. Oh, by the way, it was made 1810. I don't think I mentioned. At the center is a ready printed basket of flowers, including lilies, rose, and thistle, and a cluster of shamrocks appears beneath it. So we would know that the thistle and the shamrocks are, and the rose are all aspects of the British Isles. So the thistle is Wales, the shamrocks is Ireland, and the rose is the United Kingdom, or the royalty. It was the War of the Roses between the Plantagenets and the Windsors, I guess, right? The basket is flanked, but the panel commemorates the Golden Jubilee of George III. Okay, so I was right. It is George III, and is just inscribed G50R. Most of the printed cottons date from the early 19th century, but the floral border is a later addition. Okay, so this outer part is later, but all this inner part is 1810, right? The maker has used both applique and piecing techniques to create the patchwork design, which includes a border in the design now known as tumbling blocks. So, yeah, tumbling blocks. An X-ray of the bed cover revealed an earlier quilt at the center used for the wadding. Oh my gosh! So this thing has another quilt inside of it. Can you believe that? Lancaster and York. Sorry, Lancaster and York. So the Plantagenet is the top, and then Lancaster and York below. Okay, sorry. Windsors are our modern royalty. Let's see. The earlier 18th century quilt is wadded with wool and is quilted in an all-over design of chevrons. The construction of the 19th century quilt top suggests that some of the patches were applied directly to this earlier quilt rather than pieced together. So it was used as a foundation versus just a batting. That's interesting. When the new top was added, a secondary quilting pattern of interlocking circles was carried out, the design now known as wine glasses. The reverse of the bed cover is white cotton. Wow! wow. I'm glad we looked this up and I didn't just bypass it since we already had seen it in color because it's on the book. So, so Druid's correction of my my terrible royal knowledge. So the War of the Roses were a series of devastating English civil wars 1455 to 1487, fought for the throne between the two rival branches of the royal house of Plantagenet, the House of Lancaster, which is the red rose, and the House of York, which is the white rose. And today you still see the roses all over everything. And it's just one of the symbols of the royalty now. Okay, moving on. So I pulled this one up because, as I talked about these chintz medallions, this is what they actually looked like in printing. Um, Sometimes, and the ones that made it over here, the imports over here, sometimes had other pieces, like it would have like corner things, or other types of things. But this is what they looked like. And this is John Lowe and Company. And yeah, you could cut these things out, and then just quilt, piece around it. You could actually cut all of these individual bits out, each of these little things, and make them into something else. Um, Definitely have seen American quilts. So here in the US, seen where they've taken stuff like this and cut it all up. They've had maybe, a handful of them, or, some of the yardage. And so they've cut all of these elements up and used it in different ways. Now, I don't think that any of these would be in, there's a database. A dear friend has studied the ones that came to the U.S. and I don't think these are in her database. The ones that came to the U.S. were kind of like, I think that these as they maybe declined in popularity in the UK, because I mean we're looking at things from like the early 1800s. So as these things declined in popularity, or maybe they were kind of the seconds, the not as good ones, they sent those to the US. So the ones in the US are like a lot of like fruit, like these fruit baskets. And then you'll see other stuff that is maybe a little more special. It's got some like military type stuff in it. Let's see very quickly. Textile of block printed white cotton in madder colors with penciled blue. So that means the blue was painted in after the block printing was done. The cotton is printed with nine and a half 9.5 octagonal panels intended to be cut out and applied to patchwork quilts. Each panel contains a bunch of flowers. Around the inner border is an inscription of Princess Charlotte of Wales, married to Leopold, Prince of Saxe-Coburg. And we've seen this one before. And I don't know if it was exactly this one. I'm wondering if there were multiple ones. But now I'm doubting myself. I know we've looked at it. The Princess Charlotte and Leopold. Anyway, so let's see. Their marriage was May 2nd, 1816. And the borders are 3 Prince of Wales feathers, the royal arms, and a crown on each side. At the end of the textile is printed a rectangular panel containing the manufacturer's name, and in the corner is the name G. Swindles. There is an excise stamp with the date of 1816. So that's lovely that you've got this absolute date because it's got an excise stamp on it. That's pretty awesome. But I feel like the one I've seen before, I don't think this is the same one. I could be wrong though. So this it's got the info. I think this is here, where it's talking about, see, I definitely see Leopold there. It's talking about Princess Charlotte and Prince Leopold. But I want to say the one, I'm thinking of a different one. And I think it was in the chintz book, maybe. I wonder if it was this or if it was a different one. I'll have to dig the chintz book out later and see. So I'm going to pull this one out and set it aside. Remind me to go look. Okay. On to this next one. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is in the book. And if you remember this one, so this is the sundial in the middle. This is just like from a chapter back. And then in the corners, you have the globes showing, so this is North and South America, I think. And then you've got Europe over here. Is that Europe or maybe that's Australia? I don't I think the goal here was to show like maybe the British Empire, perhaps. Um, but then it has all of these different, um, patterns in here. Oh, there's the scissors and so MCB 1797, and then of course the sundial. And I knew there was something specific about what the sundial was set to. Um, and this is the one that had there's the little sewing clamp. And then I thought maybe these things might be weaving or sewing. We also have these baby rattles or rattles. I guess they don't have to be belonging to a baby. This one is just, this quilt is just stunning to me, or coverlet, because I don't think it's quilted. I think it's just a coverlet or a top. So here, yeah, this is North America and South America. And this, okay, so I'm guessing this is Europe, right? And Asia and the Middle East, perhaps over here. And then this would be Africa. And then this must be Australia. So they're kind of squunching everything into one plane, I guess. And then I do remember that the lower corners are the British Isles. And I think each of the counties is, done in these little scraps. And this one, oh gosh, there's lots of stuff written into this one. I guess identifying the little counties. So this one is supposed to be Ireland. And you see there's oh, that's a thistle. Well, that wouldn't be Ireland. Well, it says Galloway. So that's interesting. Yeah, this is definitely England because you've got Cumbria and Suffolk and Wiltshire. A lot of this is Sussex. Yeah, a lot of this is abbreviated. So that's the English rose, I'm assuming. Hmm. Lincolnshire? Derbyshire? Okay. Just look at all of these. Just amazing. I could just, like, we already spent all day looking at this thing when we looked at it in the book. It's just so fascinating. Okay. Look at this, you guys. Now, I was certain this was in the book. I don't think it is. There are a couple of, at least one very intense hexagon quilt in the book, but not this one. This is just everything. I mean, look at this thing. This has got some, like, definitely got some soldier vibes, you know. These look like pieces of, like, uniform wool. I feel like maybe I've seen this one before. So let's read about this one. So we do have an artist and maker on this. So this is Frances Braley, circa 1864 to 77. And it was made in India. Military or soldiers' quilts are made from wool serge or worsted twill used in the production of military uniforms. Because of the thickness of the cloth, piercing and sewing the quilts was extremely difficult, and it is unlikely that any military quilts were made by women. The mid 19th century was a period when the fashion for colorful and elaborate patchwork was most prolific in Britain, and military quilts represented a unique chapter in the history of the craft. Military quilts are often referred to as Crimean quilts. The Crimean War was from 1853 to 1856. Brightness of color is a key feature of quilts made in India, unlike the more subdued color palettes of Crimean quilts. Erroneously attributed to one William Braley, research revealed that the quilt was actually made by his father, Francis Braley, a private in the 1st 11th Foot Regiment who served in India between 1864 and 1877. So this was an Indian quilt and not a Crimean quilt. Within a month of returning to England, Braley married Mary Ann Ashe, with whom he had one son, William. Braley died 3 years later with tuberculosis. So, very sad, very interesting. And there's something about these types of quilts that are made by men, either soldiers or tailors. They all have like this vibe about them. It's like a very masculine vibe, and you're kind of like, once you've seen a number of them, you can kind of pick them out. Even if you don't know like the maker, you can still say like, that's got that soldier tailor vibe to me. Okay, here's another one. Not in the book, I don't think, but very similar, because actually this one might actually be in the book now that I'm looking at it. Let's see. This has got this lovely lion thing going on. Um, the lion the lion is part of the royal coat of arms, but it should have a unicorn on the other side. So this is only half of that. And I don't think that it has anything else. Yeah, it's only got that one medallion. So let's find out about it, because I'm trying to remember. So it was made in Exeter. The date range is 1690 to 1720. Okay, so according to the donor, this quilt was made for Bishop's Court, a medieval manor house in Devon, once owned by the bishops of Exeter and later purchased by the Earl of Bedford. In 1651, the house was bought by Peter Bevis, son of a wealthy Exeter merchant. The rampant lion is thought to be from the Bedford arms. Okay, so not the British arms or the royal arms, but the Bedford arms. And its inclusion at the head of this quilt seems deliberately to affiliate the Bevis family with the original owners. This bed cover has been quilted with a technique now known as stitch in the ditch, quilting along the seams of the patchwork to enhance the pieced design. Interesting. So this one is quite likely not in the book, but if it was in a private ownership until the V&A got it. But it does have like very similar vibes to a lot of the quilts, like these patterns. This is sticking with me because I know there is a quilt in the book that has um these like sort of crisscross right angle things that was made with binding. I don't think they looked exactly like this, but we looked at that the other day. Okay, let's look at a couple more. This is another one that I think is in the book. I'm pretty sure we saw this one. It's got so much going on, which I love. So these, little hexagon flowers, little hearts, and these sort of orange peel petaled flowers, and all the clamshell. Oh my goodness, so much clamshell. And then, this piecing around the outside is very simple. It doesn't look like much, but with the variety of fabrics, it's just really stunning. And, this medallion in the center. Let's see, here's their close up of it. Um, okay, so there is, I can't zoom in quite enough to see. I think it's Anne Randall. Was it Randoll, maybe? I don't know. Wish I could get in here closer to see this. But these look like they're all embroidered little squares set on point. This is definitely a dog tooth edge here. This border here. And then these. So strips of fabric, and they've clipped and then, folded it in. In some places more better than others. Okay, so this is October 27th, 1802. Gosh, look at all of these fabrics. Can you imagine? She must have had a fantastic scrap bin, or she traded with a lot of people, or her husband or father worked for a mill. Oh, just lovely. Okay, let's find out about this one. And now it's saying maker unknown, but I mean, this thing is dated. So, and it has that name on it. Okay, so this is okay. So Anne Randall is okay. This coverlet is a striking example of the craft of patchwork, a popular pastime in the 19th century. The overall design combines a variety of blocks or shapes with appliqued flowers and an embroidered central medallion. Anne Randall was part of the Coat family of Somerset, but it has not been possible to find out anything about her despite considerable genealogical research. Several printed cottons date from about 1802, so this may be her birth or another significant family date rather than the date the patchwork was completed. The coverlet is composed of hundreds of tiny pieces of printed cotton and some printed linen, and together these show the development of textile printing from about 1780 to the 1820s. One stylized flower printed in red on green comes from India, where the technique of printing with wooden blocks on cotton was first perfected. Another fabric used was a large-scale furnishing linen printed in France. The coverlet is dominated by many attractive small-scale floral sprigs and stripes that become so fashionable in the late 18th and early 19th century and show the great variety of designs that became available from Britain's manufacturers as mechanization and technology improved. So it seems to me that this thing is, I mean, it's just a sampler of gorgeous fabric. And what was that date again? The date was 1802. Yeah, October 27th, 1802. Okay. I don't know. Randall. All right. So this last one we'll look at, and then we'll read the chapter. And depending on where we end there, we could look at a few more. But I don't know if this is exactly one that was shown in the book, but I do know that multiple white works were shown in the book. And these pictures were taken in such a way that so that you can see the quilting. And I think this quilt in particular, it's dirty, so it helps. It's got some staining on it, and it really does help bring the quilting out. But I thought these were just really lovely little segments of stitching. I mean, they're not super involved, but they're pretty involved. And all together, well, I mean, when you get up into here, this is some pretty complex, but all put together, it looks like it's just stunning. These, I mean, simple shapes that all, turn into this really complex looking borders and corners and stuff. But if this is not the one in the book, it's very similar to what we looked at in the book. All right. Well, let's go back to me. And I'm going to pull up. I had like 3 times as many more quilts. Like, there has to be a limit though. So let's get into the book and then we can go back if needed. So just want to make sure I'm finding where we left off. So this one is another lovely one that I will stop on. It's got some really fun leaves and things. Okay. So we were on, I think we're in the 19th century. Put that there. Okay, let me find. So yeah, we got a couple pages into the 19th century, and we'd left off reading about a quilt that I think we did not have a picture of. It was talking about octagons that were in fact hexagons. There was a letter that had been written. So we're moving on. Oh, Jane Austen. That's right. We're moving on to talk about the Jane Austen quilt. So first of all, what you do see here on the screen, this is a marriage coverlet. Always, I have to twitch a little bit when somebody says it's a marriage quilt or a marriage coverlet, because a lot of times they're not. It seems to be always assumed that something that was very ornate was a bride's quilt, and a lot of times, if you do the research on a particular quilt, you'll find out it was, especially here in the U.S. I'm really talking about the U.S. here. You'll find out it was actually a presentation quilt, say to a minister or a community leader, and not somebody's bride quilt. So I twitch a little bit, but she could be absolutely right that this is a marriage quilt. So it's a coverlet in patchwork with applique patterns of hearts and natural leaf and flower shapes. So you can see these like are it's almost like she's traced leaves. These are accurate looking leaf shapes. In colors of light blue, pink, tan, and buff, with dark blue and green cotton dress prints. Made by Mary Dickinson of Thornley, dated 1815. So she will be spoken of next. All right. So the diamond pattern quilt made by Mrs. Austen and her gifted daughters, Jane and Cassandra, is recorded in a letter written by Jane to her sister away on a visit, saying the following: "Have you collected the pieces for the patchwork? We are at a standstill." It was written in 1811, the year in which Sense and Sensibility was published, and the coverlet is now kept at the Austens' house in Chawton, Hampshire. The commemorative block-printed panels, which were fashionable at the beginning of the century, are illustrated. One has already been described and was used in quilts made about King George's third Jubilee year. So we just looked at one of those in the V&A stuff. So his Jubilee year is 1810. And then another one to celebrate the victory of Wellington at Vittoria, which we looked at last week. It is printed in much the same colors, with an arc of yellow and red flame over Wellington's name. Other victories and occasions of the time do not seem to have been immortalized in patchwork patterns, except for pieces of the Nelson print used in the coverlet begun after the Battle of the Nile, and the octagonal panel printed on the occasion of Princess Charlotte's marriage to Prince Leopold, which we also just looked at. Do you wonder why I pulled these out? Plate printed pictorial patterns. Oh Lord, that's quite a lot of alliteration. Plate printed pictorial patterns on cotton and linen had been popular from time to time since the 18th century, and scenes of the death and funeral of Lord Nelson were among the contemporary prints. But though they had a topical interest, they did not inspire the quilt makers of the day. Admiral Collingwood seems to have been the last of the famous people so honored in patchwork at the time. The specially printed panels used in the early 19th century framed designs, and she's framed using putting that in quotes, appear to be the immediate forerunners of the all applique coverlets, which were to become so widely popular towards the end of the Georgian period. The Jefferson and Eaton coverlets, which we looked at, I think we looked at those last week. Look it up. Jefferson and Eaton. So I'll jump back so you can see those. So yes, Elizabeth Jefferson and Sally Eaton. So these two. The Jefferson and Eaton coverlets show two kinds of framed pattern, one partly applique, one all geometrical, and both made about the same year. The two commemorative quilts just mentioned are typical of another stage. Arabella, back to Arabella Gwatkin, combines cutout chintz applique with borders of geometrical shapes in 1816. Also, Mary Dickinson in 1815. So there's the Duke of Wellington. And then here we are back at Mary Dickinson. So also Mary Dickinson in 1815 did applique in natural leaf and flower shapes and combined it with a geometrical patchwork. Each worker uses the Portuguese hem to produce the dog's tooth borders and not separate triangular patches. But the Dickinson coverlet having hearts among the patterns is a marriage coverlet. So she's adamant that because there are hearts in there, it's a marriage coverlet. And is signed and dated and has the name of the Durham village where it was made. And so it's Mary Dickinson, Thornley, 1815. Patchwork was one of the occupations taught to the women in Newgate Prison by Elizabeth Fry, who realized the good effect of giving them cheerful community work to do. In her life of Mrs. Fry, Mrs. Janet Whitney describes how a member of the Society of Friends, which are Quakers, sat at the head of a long table reading aloud to the women who did their work, each wearing a clean blue apron and bib with a numbered ticket on a red tape hanging round her neck. Even those who were sentenced to transportation for life were provided with all the patchwork materials they would need on the long voyage to New South Wales, as Patchwork had already sailed there. So basically, like, what she's saying is they're giving the women, I mean, these women that are in prison and who are set to, so this is Arabella Gwatkin's work here. These women who are set to be transported either to the U.S. or more likely Australia because they were being sent because they were prisoners. They were still given materials to make quilts. That's so interesting. I mean, what would things be like today? I mean, we've looked at, there's a number of programs in prison systems, both in the U.S. and in the U.K. The one in the U.K. is Find Cell Work, and the programs here are under different names. But what if people were given fabric or some type of crafting supplies as part of their, prison stuff? Oh no. just, had to inch up the volume this whole time, and you're now at 98%. I'm gonna yell at this mic when we get off here. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so like if and I realize this is very impractical what I'm talking about here, like giving prisoners craft supplies. But I mean, you think about people that, making the most of their prison sentence and doing something productive. Making art is a type of rehabilitation, art therapy. So I often wonder. Okay. So I'm just glancing here at some of these other pictures. Is this from the Arabella Guatkin? Arabella Guatkin. I mean, that's just what a name. The center of an applied coverlet in red, pink, and blue cotton prints. And then these really, I mean, these could have been made in the US, in terms of being patterns that are just blocks. So Durham flower basket quilt, 1830. And a Devonshire flower basket. I think I remember it was maybe a chapter back where she mentioned these, basket quilts. Okay. Okay, some of the work was disposed of. So this is where she's talking about the voyage to New South Wales. Patchwork had already sailed there. Some of the work was disposed of on the way, and in 1819, one of the ships touched at Rio de Janeiro, where quilts were sold for 1 guinea each. I can't remember how much money that is. Recent attempts to trace any quilts sold in New South Wales have been unsuccessful so far, and only 2 coverlets are known at present to be associated with the work of Elizabeth Fry. Both have been bequeathed to the Castle Museum at Norwich. It is possible that at no other period was patchwork so universally made in England as during the years from 1800 until the beginning of Queen Victoria's reign. Applique is more typical than other kinds of patchwork, and the number of coverlets which have been preserved in mint condition speaks for the value which was put upon them. Never again do we find work which compares with them for color or pattern. Isolated pieces of good work appear before this time, such as the 18th century coverlet mentioned earlier in chapter 9, and another, but of a different kind, made about 1815. So, no, this isn't the one she's talking about. Oh, it is. I'm sorry. It is. The center of which is illustrated. The Isle of Wight coverlet, which we're looking at here, presumably made about 1820, is yet another in which some flower patterns are made of geometrical patterns. And it is probable that a laurel leaf was used as a template for the garden and sprays. The Sharman sisters, and that's Sharman, designed their applique from their own garden flowers about the same time, and their patterns are finely hemmed to a ground of unbleached calico. 2 very similar coverlets were made, probably as a pair, about 1820, each with the familiar pheasant and palm design in the center, and in one illustrated with 4 peacocks and 4 peahens to keep him company. So this is the Isle of Wight coverlet, and you could see she's made these little diagrams. So this is from Mary Dickinson's coverlet with the hearts and the leaves, and then these are from the Isle of Wight quilt. So, simplified. A bolder design was used in a coverlet made about 1825, And the flower patterns are set off by the use of dark prints in a pattern of twisted ribbon and a dog's tooth border. So I think I've been correct about those dog's tooth borders. All hemmed to a ground of thick white cotton. An applique coverlet made in Newark about 1825 has loops and festoons of linked hexagons and diamonds, with patchwork flower patterns scattered among pieces cut from 18th century embroideries. So she's got those illustrations here. The applique patterns mentioned so far have been of the manor house rather than the cottage, but the simpler patterns made by village people are no less interesting. The two flower basket quilts, which we just looked at, show a different outlook on the same pattern, and the applique version of the pincushion found in North Country quilts are typical of true village work. Patterns made by cottage workers are generally of a more constant and steadfast tradition than the upper class work, and less influenced by changes in fashion. They have used patchwork patterns of many kinds and adapted them to applique, probably because dress prints were more available than the flowered chintzes, and not all had the skill and imagination needed. Even for patterns such as Mary Dickinson's or the anonymous masterpiece mentioned in chapter 7, which was way back. I don't remember what that one was. Flowered cotton prints can be found in quilts made during the 20 or 30 years following the end of the Georgian period, but a gradual change in the designs shows less and less applied work and an increase in the use of smaller patterned cottons. Let me go on to the next thing here. Silk and velvet pieces in geometrical patterns by slow degrees replaced the chintz applique of the manor house, as the dress fashion for those materials also changed. About the 1830s, muslin appeared in some coverlets, but examples of it are now rare. The illustrated brick pattern, which we haven't gotten to that one yet, is made from mauve, blue, purple, and brown muslins with printed and woven designs. The coverlet is still in use, but nothing is known of its history except that it appeared in a jumble sale and was rescued from there. An example of a fashion which lasted from the 18th century until the early 1900s is a small pocket, one of a pair, made in the cotton reel pattern about 1835. These pockets were worn in pairs, connected with tape and tied around the waist. Above the petticoat and under a full skirted dress, they were reached by slits in the side seams. A cushion square made by Miss Lucy Brett of Norfolk during the 1830s is a good example of the contemporary patterns, with its clear outline enclosing a number of colors. Miss Brett was well known for her needlework, and not only made the coverlet in the same star pattern, but she is also remembered for winning a bet that she would make a gentleman's shirt complete with frills in one day, provided she was allowed to cut it out the day before. The diamond pattern on another coverlet of the time also encloses a combination of colors. As it will be seen, some of the groups are cut from one piece of chintz, carefully shaped at the edges so that they appear to be made of separate pieces. The affection for floral applied work took some time to die. The affection for floral applied work took some time to die, but quilts made about 1840 retain only shadows of the earlier patterns. Small applique cornucopias and a basket of flowers appear among the rosette patterns on a coverlet made in this year, which was shown 11 years later at the Great Exhibition. With the exception of these patterns, in a dark blue print, the cottons are all mauve. Mauve, you say? Blue and pink dress prints, typical of those used until the end of the century. The work is finished with a frill of pink and white striped cotton, which was the fashionable finish and took the place of the fringe on the edge of quilts until the early years of the next century. My throat's dry. Mary Lloyd's quilt, signed and dated 1840, is more likely the earlier applied work. It has one of the bird and tree patterns. So let's see. I think that might be. It is not this. It is this, I think. Yep. So this is Mary Lloyd of Cardiganshire. I just lost my spot. Okay. It has one of the bird and tree patterns surrounded by an applique leaf garland in dark greens on a calico ground. The cutout chintz patterns in the corners of the center square are in many bright colors, and bows of bright blue cotton add to the pattern of this Cardiganshire quilt, one of the best of its period. Unfortunately, the picture is not. um, It is interlined with wool, and the quilting is in a diamond pattern, except where it follows the applique in the center. An unorthodox kind of honeycomb pattern first seems to have been done at this time. I'm looking to see. She kind of keeps going back and forth. Okay. Each patch consists of 2 hexagonal pieces of cotton. No silk work has ever been found. One of which is a little larger than the other. The larger piece is gathered at the sides to make each equal to the length of those of the smaller hexagon. Then they were joined one above the other so that together they made one patch. The fullness in the middle of the upper layer was gathered in also and sewn down to the lower patch, thus giving the effect of a small rosette. After washing and ironing, the gathers tend to flatten and give a depressing appearance to this kind of work. But in a cot quilt made by Isabella Crudas of Rookhope, County Durham, a small amount of padding was gathered into the center of each hexagon, which held the fullness and preserved the rosette effect. So essentially, I think what she's talking about is the maker's taken like one patch and then put another one on top that was like smaller, and then, or probably the other way around. The top one was bigger, and it was gathered to fit the edges of that smaller one, and then so it poofed up, and then if it was gathered again in the center, it just created like a ruched effect. And so if you stuffed it, then it would kind of pop out a little bit. So it's just kind of like a surface decoration. The little quilt illustrated is in red and white calico hexagons, outlined with a pattern of diamonds and pyramids of red calico. It is lined with calico and finished with a border of alternate red and white pyramids. So it is this that she's talking about. And there is some amazing fussy cutting which happened here. I mean, look at all of that. Clearly, or maybe not so clearly because it's not a great picture, but I mean, you can definitely see that these are flowers, roses and their leaves that have been fussy cut into these. Yeah, all that to make the little stripes and things. From time to time, men have taken an interest in patchwork, and there is no doubt that the earliest known example was made by them. Men designed and made patchwork in this country from the beginning of the 19th century and from about 1840. There is constant evidence that fathers and sons made a considerable contribution to the work of the family. Not only did they cut the templates, but also the papers and material, and often helped with the sewing. A Somerset woman can remember helping father to get on with the patchwork when mother got tired of it. A young man's planning resulted in an outstanding pattern of applied and patchwork. In 1837, oh my gosh, I love this woman's name. In 1837, Elizabeth Cakebread's father, Cakebread! So maybe I should change my name to Stephanie Cakebread. So Elizabeth Cakebread's father, he was a parson, designed a quilt for her in hexagons, which she never finished. Joe the quilter, who we read about in Mavis Fitzrandolph's book, the Northumbrian character, famous for his quilting designs, made patchwork tops for his quilts. Quite a number of them have survived, especially around Headley, which is where Joe was from, where he lived before his mysterious murder in 1825, and one is illustrated in traditional quilting. Several contain pieces of the pheasant and palm tree print. In 1854, Private Thomas Walker was wounded in the head at the Battle of Inkerman. His skull was repaired by a silver plate. And to add to this interesting attraction of Private Walker, he spent his time of convalescence sitting up in bed making a patchwork coverlet and was seen in Fort Pitt Military Hospital by Queen Victoria while on an official visit in March 1855. Right? Names are interesting. And I'm wondering where Cakebread, where that comes from. Somebody in her past was a baker, perhaps. Um, so the illustration is taken from a painting by Thomas Wood. And actually, let's jump forward to see. Ah, yes, we know this one. We've seen this before. He's got that little nightcap on, so you can't see the silver plate on his skull. So the illustration is taken from a painting by Thomas Wood, 1856, which now hangs in the Royal College of Surgeons at Lincoln's Inn Fields, and is an interesting reminder that the value of what is now known as occupational therapy, thank you very much, Dr. Dunton, was recognized over 100 years ago. During the war from 1939 until 1945, patchwork was included in the occupational parcels of different kinds of handwork sent to British prisoners of war in overseas prison camps. Well, isn't that what you would love to be doing while you're in a prison camp? Sewing. A beautifully made work bag is cherished by the family of a man who was confined to an invalid's chair for many years. So, no, that's a patchwork pocket, so that's not a bag. He not only did patchwork, but made a work drawer to fit under his chair so that his work was always on hand. Sailors are well known for their nimble fingers, and several are known to have done patchwork. A long and narrow coverlet made to fit a ship's bunk was worked by a sailor of Bristol City about 90 years ago in black and red cloth diamonds, embroidered with flags and ensigns. A Durham monumental sculptor made himself a silk smoking cap during his off-duty hours while working his passage to America in 1866. It also is embroidered with naval emblems and contains brocade pieces from furnishings in the Duke of Marlborough's house, given to him by a lady's maid there. The work of James Williams and Mr. Walter White is illustrated. So let's see, James Williams. Oh, these are so beautiful. Oh, wish we could see this stuff in color. Yeah, so this is James Williams' work. And this is something, so this is the inlay. This is Intarsia as well. So we looked at that Intarsia. It was a different one. But that Intarsia quilt made by a tailor. And this one is let's see, it was made over 10 years by James Williams of Wrexham. I've heard they've got a soccer team owned by some Americans. So yeah, and I know because I've seen a picture of this in modern times, that it's these uniform wools. So it's a lot of red, black, like kind of off-white, yellow, just like that one we looked at from the V&A. Crazy work was popular in the 1880s. We read that only those having seen this fashionable work can imagine its beauty for pillows and quilts. It is not only confined to quilts and cushions. Very handsome piano covers, antimacassars, sofa pillows, table covers, etc., can be arranged. Many of these furnishings were made en suite for the parlor. Cushions and coverlets in box pattern were universally admired, and loose covers for chair seats were often made of it. Beds were still furnished entirely in patchwork, and 2 sets, one for best, were made for a Dorset half-tester bed about 1890, and many of the diamonds contain the embroidered initials of the makers. An unusual piece of patchwork seems rightly to belong to the second half of the 19th century, although if the story attached to it could be proven, it would add another 1.5 centuries to the history of English patchwork. It is a silk chasuble, which is this thing here, reputed to have been made during the time of the Reformation and carried in his pack together with small sacramental vessels by a priest disguised as a peddler. The illustration shows the pattern on the back of the vestment, with the main pattern made from rows of 4-point stars in black silk, joined by light-colored diamonds as illustrated in a border pattern of the 1880s. Several other patterns in the design are cruciform in arrangement. The colors of the silks compare closely with a similar pattern of a cushion cover in clear pink and yellow with black, made about 1860. A great deal of work in silk, satin, and velvet, or a mixture of all three, often supplemented by pieces of woolen cloth and cotton, was made during the last 40 years of the century. So, let's see. Bear with me 1 minute. I'm going to go backwards here. So these are some of the patterns that are in the chasuble. And you can see it's these cruciform patterns that are made to look three-dimensional. No account would have been given to the wearing quality of such work, with the result that most of it is more ragged and worn than cotton coverlets of twice its age. Box pattern was made mostly of silk or silk and velvet. Crazy work and log cabin were made of silk and velvet or any other available pieces of all kinds of material put together. Many of these have now disappeared. Quilts in good quality silks and velvets, however, have lasted well. 3 of them have been mentioned, and also a reference made to Jenny Jones' Crazy Coverlet, which is surely one of the best of its kind. The silk, satin, and velvet pieces are of the first quality, most in darkish shades of all colors. The embroidery contains much ribbon work in flower sprays and figures of children. Birds and flowers are worked in embroidery stitches. The outer border consists of a dark moss green velvet worked with running sprays of roses and forget-me-nots in fine ribbon work. So what she's describing is, we see lots of this over on our side of the pond. These, Victorian era, confections. they're like very floofy and have lots of work in them, and we've looked at lots of them. An illustrated log cabin bed cover is made entirely of velvet in scarlet, purple, crimson, blue, gold, bright yellow, and green. 2 other log cabin coverlets were acquired by chance. One bought in the Caledonian market is a mixture of silk, tweed, flannel velvet, and so on. And the other, bought for 2 shillings at a jumble sale in Deptford, has center squares of red plush, logs of good satins, and is lined with cotton paisley. So the center square red plush, which the center of many log cabins of this period is a red fabric. The North Country strip quilts illustrated were made towards the end of the century, and also the applique marriage quilt with quilting feather in the center. So these are all quilts we'll look at as we go forward. The last 40 years were remarkable for a number of small things other than quilts which were made. Loose covers for chair seats were still fashionable, and they appear also for piano stools in the 1870s. Patchwork for hand screens, fire screens, glove and handkerchief sachets, blinds, and windowsill valances, finished with fringe and scalloped edges, were recommended. A tea cozy and matching kettle holder were a social asset. Also, egg cozies. One made of crazy work and large enough to cover a goose egg is lavishly embroidered, and to prevent any attempt to put it on the teapot, egg 1891 has been added to in stem stitch. I don't think goose eggs are as big as teapots, are they? Fashion notes included muffs made of velvet. Weldon's practical publications suggested that an elegant bag for holding work is always a desirable acquisition, and if it be handsome enough to take occasionally to the theater to contain handkerchief, opera glasses, and smelling bottle, so much the better. Pincushions, which are right here. And she wrote a book called Pincushions. It was actually the first Averil Colby book I ever owned. Was and these illustrations are, I think, in that book too. Pincushions were often fitted into the small compartments of workbox trays, two in a matching pattern used separately for pins and needles, made of box or star patterns, and other covers and linings were also made of patchwork. Pincushions were looked upon as pretty ornaments for the drawing room table or suspended from a nail on the wall. 3 hanging pincushions shown are taken from Weldon's of 1885. So that's these. A collection of pincushions at Gawthorpe Hall, now National Trust property, near Burnley, include a number of shapes, including one in a box and star shape, 2 resembling small jugs with pins in the lids, and one as a jockey cap, and many others, including a pentagon ball. So these are also shown, and I want to say there are actually pictures of those shown in her other book. Any story of the century's work would be incomplete without mentions of the patchwork pictures made by an old lady of Stratford-upon-Avon, Mrs. H.R. Harris, which are now in the Shakespeare Memory Theatre. She lived in a very small cottage not far from the Shakespeare Hotel, and the walls of her room were hung with her pictures, which she delighted to show to visitors and charged a penny to see the exhibition. One of her visitors can remember her in 1912, at 70 years old, as a very spry little woman with bright black eyes. The picture illustrated is one of a Christmas christening service, perhaps in 1875, as it is signed and dated H.R. Harris, 1876. The figures gathered round the font have skirts, coats, hats, and trousers made from actual pieces of tweed, suiting, velvet, and cloth, except for a lady in a striped skirt made of pillow ticking, and the baby's long gown is a piece of broderie anglaise. The Christmas decorations are worked in green wool. Many other pictures made by this old lady are in the theater, no less interesting than the christening. So hold on a second. Let me jump forward, and that'll be the last thing that we look at. If I can find this. So this is H.R. Harris. Here we go. So this one's really interesting. This looks so modern to me. Just looks like a pictorial quilt, like a pretty modern pictorial quilt. But I'm looking to see, I guess this the baby's right here. And I'm guessing maybe this is the pillow ticking skirt, perhaps. So, gosh. Well, see, Why can't we find this one in color? I'm going to have to look and see. Look at all these. These would be the stained glass windows, I guess. Wow. That's a pretty cool picture. So I'm going to have to look her up and see if we could find her stuff in color. Now I know Stratford-upon-Avon, they kind of have their own. Okay, so in 1958, when this book was written, the Patchwork picture, this is now was at the Shakespeare Memorial Theater at Stratford-upon-Avon. I know that they have a newer museum type of thing at Stratford-upon-Avon. I'm trying to mentally look my way around it from what I remember, because I didn't go in, but I saw the outside of it. So I'm wondering if this kind of stuff might be there too. I'll have to find out. Well, I'm going to leave off there. So we finished chapter 10. In chapter 11, let's see, we have the 20th century. And that one is about 2¼ pages long. So I think next time we can look at more pictures. So I'm thinking Thursday is probably going to be another Averil Colby day. And maybe I can find more of this lady's work, see if we can find that in color. So yeah. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to hit the road. It is almost 4 o'clock my time. So this week, on Quilt Nerding, sort of business as usual, we are getting ready to start a new book. So if you normally read with us, just know, we've advertised the book. It's one of Roderick Karakoff's books. I'm completely blanking on it right now. It's one of his earlier book. It was written, I think it was 95, 94, 95, somewhere around there. It's a very good book. A lot of the quilt scholars that we talked to pointed out that they recommend that book a lot of times for new quilt scholars. So it's a good one. So, maybe if it's one that you haven't ever really read other than flipping through the pictures, might be a good time to read that. So yeah, hope you'll join us. We've got a normal day, a normal stream tomorrow. And then next week, so in July, it's July 7th, I think, is when we'll announce the first reading assignment. So just want to remind everybody about that. Yeah, and I'll see you on Thursday. So have a wonderful week. Stay cool. I think we've got some heat ramping up this week. It's supposed to get really gnarly by the 4th of July. Typical July weather. So, so I hope you guys have a nice, cool, relaxing week. And I will see you soon. Bye!